Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross from PTCGRadio, and I'm back with another game from the Nottingham League Challenge that happened just a week or two ago. For a little bit of context, it would have happened on Saturday, the 14th of September. And what we have here is a game from round 2, with both players sitting at 1-0. On the left-hand side, we have my good friend Ben. And on the right-hand side, with the World's 2011 playmat, we have my good friend Tommy. Now, I heard about this game afterwards, but I've not watched this game yet. So it's a little bit like I'm commentating on it live as it happened. So, just to kind of key you in, I'm kind of watching this at the same time that you are, same speed that you are, so I will do my best to keep you updated with stuff as they go on. Now, the flip's gone, but they haven't actually told us who won the flip yet, which is a little bit frustrating. Tommy's acting like he does, and Tommy's won the flip there, he's drawn that, and Tommy starts with a Genesect, and Ben starts with a Xerneas, the one with Geomancy, which means that Ben is playing an Aromatisse deck. That Xerneas is only really ever played in an Aromatisse deck. Tommy has benched an Eevee there, and he's played a Team Plasma Ball, and he will almost certainly be going for a Deoxys here. Now, Tommy is playing an Eeveelutions deck, and there is the Deoxys. And this is an Eeveelutions deck which is starting to get a bit of buzz around the internet at the moment. It's one which I'm going to be talking about on episode 114 of my podcast. By the time you watch this, if you watch it when it's first come out, episode 114 won't be out yet. So wait for it. If you're watching it in a little bit of a delay after it's been released, then check out podcast 114, where I'll talk about this Eeveelutions deck in a little bit more detail. This PTCG Radio is the podcast. But essentially, you run Eevee, and I believe he's Skylaring there for a Professor's Letter, which will allow him to search for 2 basic energy. And the whole deck basically runs around that Eevee. That Eevee has a lovely ability whereby you attach a basic energy from your hand to Eevee, and you get to attach a Pokemon. You get to evolve it immediately into a Pokemon of that type. So Tommy searched for Grass Energy and Psychic Energy. He could now attach the Grass Energy and evolve him into Leafeon, and he could attach the Psychic Energy, he could attach the Psychic Energy and evolve Eevee into Espeon. Now, given Ben's deck, is playing an Aromatisse deck which aims to get a bunch of energy into play and move it around with Aromatisse onto different attackers, allowing him to use whatever he wants. Yes, and there we go. Tommy is going to want to go for the Leafeon here. Leafeon has an ability for 1 energy, which allows you to do 20 damage times the number of energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. So at the moment, that's not going to do anything, but if Ben puts an energy down on Xerneas and uses Geomancy allows him to attach 1 Fairy Energy to each of 2 different bench Pokemon. He'll then have 3 free energy in play, so Leafeon will then be doing 60 damage for a single energy. And of course, Leafeon is a Team Plasma Pokemon, and Ben puts a Fairy Garden in there, which gives free retreat to any Pokemon with a Fairy Energy attached. Because Leafeon, and there's a Juniper from Ben, trying to get himself set up, get some basics out. Because Leafeon is a Team Plasma Pokemon, that means that Deoxys will do more damage. So with 1 Deoxys down there, Leafeon will actually be doing 70 if Ben gets free energy into play. And Ben there drops a Latias EX, which has an ability which basically stops attacks from any Pokemon with an ability. And Xerneas EX there, which has got a couple of decent attacks to hit for decent damage. So as I've said, Tommy's Leafeon here is currently doing 70 damage, and he's attached an energy there to he's got another Eevee down. He's actually attached a Psychic Energy to Deoxys. Deoxys is a pretty good attacker in his own right. If you get a Psychic and a Plasma Energy, he does 30 damage plus 30 for each energy attached to the defending Pokemon. So Ben gets another regular Xerneas down, and what Xerneas does, apart from Geomancy, it's got an attack which I think does 100 for free energy, which is nothing spectacular, but it's nice, and what was I going to say? it's kind of efficient, I suppose. It does 100, it's not going to blow you away, but if you can hit for 100 every turn, it's going quite well. So Ben choruses for 6, and he really needs to get a Spritzy here. Ben's deck revolves around Aromatisse, and what Aromatisse does is it's got an ability which allows you to move your fairy energy around between all of your Pokemon. Which means that if he had a Spritzy down last turn and evolved it, and there he gets a Spritzy. Now, if he was able to get an Aromatisse now, he'd actually have 4 energy that he'd be able to move around, and he'd actually be able to use Xerneas EX's big attack. Or indeed, just use Xerneas' attack for 100, which would KO that Leafeon. So Xerneas attacks Xerneas EX for 3 energy. He can do 60 and 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, and for 4 energy it can do 140, but then they can't use that attack again the next turn. Now, one really good card in Tommy's Eeveelutions deck here is Pokemon Fan Club. It allows you to search for 2 basics. Because you're actually evolving Eevees by attaching basic energy, and you're playing a bunch of basic energy in Professor's Letter, then just searching for those basics can be a really good help. So he gets a 3rd Eevee down, he gets a 2nd Deoxys down, and he's actually able then to hit for 80, which is more than enough. No, sorry, not 80. Oh, no, my apologies, it is 80, because there's only 3 energy on Ben's side of the... No, okay, last time. 100. 4 energy is 80, plus the 2 Deoxys is 100. And you see there he's got another Leafeon there. Although he did miss his energy attachment that turn, did Tommy, which is somewhat annoying, shall we say. Now, he does get that Aromatisse out, does Ben. And then he plays an end, which isn't really going to slow Tommy down too much, because Tommy will still get 5 from this, having taken just the 1 prize. But Ben here's got a pretty good setup. He's got 4 energy on the field, he's got an Aromatisse down to move them around, and what he is going to want to do is he's going to want to get another Spritzy down as soon as possible. And the reason for that is Tommy, as you've seen, is playing Genesect. Genesect has that red signal ability. You attach a Plasma Energy from your hand, and you can gust up a Pokemon from your opponent's bench to you. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a pretty gosh darned good ability. And because Tommy's playing a Plasma-based deck, all of the Eeveelutions Tommy's playing are Team Plasma Pokemon. It means that he's going to be playing Plasma Energy, and then he gets to KO with Xerneas' 2nd attack, which means he's not able to use that attack next turn. Remembering, of course, that he does have Fairy Garden in play, which means he can free retreat, and then he's got Aromatisse, which means he can move the energy to another attacker. So Tommy gets an Espeon down there. Espeon's got a pretty cool attack, which hits anything on the bench for 40. Now, we see a Plasma Energy and a Muscle Band down there, which means that Deoxys is going to be hitting for 170. Deoxys hits for 30 damage, and if you've got a Plasma Energy attached, it does 30 more for each energy attached only to the defending Pokemon. Now, 4 energy is 120, plus the 30 from Deoxys is 150, and that Muscle Band puts it up to 170, which is enough to kill that Xerneas EX. Ben, however, is going to counter with his Latias EX. Latias EX has an ability which basically means it can't be hurt by Pokemon who have abilities. And as previously mentioned, that Deoxys has the ability which adds 10 damage to all Team Plasma Pokemon's attacks. As Tommy's playing Team Plasma Eeveelutions, that of course means that Deoxys is really good, both as an attacker, and to add damage to Leafeon and Espeon and Vaporeon's attacks. What it's not going to do, however, is any damage to Latias EX, because Latias EX has that Bright Down ability. It does only, however, do 70 damage. It gets through weakness and resistance and all other effects, so it could hit Pyroar, for instance, getting through Pyroar's ability, but it only hits for 70, which isn't very much. Now, it's got a Muscle Band, so it's hitting for 90. It will be a 2-hit KO on that Deoxys, but it's not great. So he uses Fairy Garden to do the free retreat, gets the energy on the Mewtwo, and he's going to need either free energy or he's going to need 2 energy and a Muscle Band, and he goes for the free energy, and that's going to allow him to get the KO on that Deoxys. You'll see there Ben is playing Rainbow Energy. Now, he's only playing 4 because that's all you can have nowadays, But the advantage of playing that rainbow energy is it means he can use attackers like Latias, for instance, which don't just run off colourless or fairy energy. Now, a Mewtwo War isn't the best thing for Ben to get into here, and you've got to bear in mind, this game was played before this Eeveelutions deck was talked about at all. Ben won't really understand about Tommy's deck yet. He probably hasn't read Espeon for a long time. Who has? But Espeon has got an attack Shadow Ball for a single Psychic Energy, which does 40 to any Pokemon. Now, Mewtwo's weak to Psychic, that means it's doing 80. But of course, there is a Deoxys down, which means it's doing 100. If he can get another Deoxys, and there is another Deoxys, and a Silver Bangle into play, then that Espeon's attack will actually be doing 90 for 1 energy, doubled up to 180, and will get the KO on that Mewtwo. There is an energy retrieval, which is going to allow him to get that Psychic Energy so he can attack with the Espeon. And the question is, does he have the Silver Bangle? Oh, he doesn't yet, but he has a Colress for 8. And you can see Tommy's deck's getting quite thin. Tommy also could have countered a Mewtwo with his Deoxys EX. Being an Eeveelutions deck, we can probably assume, and a Plasma-based deck, we can assume there's a couple of Colress Machine, which allow you to attach a Plasma Energy from your deck, and a Psychic Energy Colress Machine will put enough energy on Deoxys to actually KO that Mewtwo. Deoxys is very good at KOing Mewtwo's that have 2 energy on them. So, or even a third Deoxys third Deoxys and a Muscle Band would get the KO here. The way he's looking at his hand, it doesn't look like he's got it, and he's already used his energy attachment for the turn. Oh no! Oh no, he's got that Muscle Band there, but he doesn't have a Silver Bangle, and he doesn't appear to have a third Deoxys, so he's only actually going to be able to do 160 total, so he's not even going to attach that Muscle Band, and he's he's going to be doing 120. Now, one cool thing about Espeon's attack is that it adds weakness and resistance on the bench. So we can actually hit that benched Mewtwo for 80. So he would have been able to get the KO on the bench. The unfortunate thing, of course, for Tommy is that Ben plays Max Potion. So he's able to move the energy off of Mewtwo onto a Pokemon on the bench using Aromatisse's ability, play that Max Potion to completely heal the Mewtwo, and then move the energy back. Now, I believe Espeon has 90 HP, and Latias with a Muscle Band can do 90. So what he might choose to do here, and you can see he's already thinking about it because he's got the energy on Latias, he can use the Fairy Energy to retreat the Mewtwo for free, pop up the Latias, and get the KO on the Espeon. Now, they're both tied at 3 prizes now, but... and he's using a Skylar there for a Lysandra, so Tommy is going to want an end next turn, or else it looks like Ben's got game. Because essentially, he's going to get the KO with his Latias. That Lysandra is going to be able to grab up a Deoxys, and then he's going to be able to move all his energy to a Mewtwo and get the KO. And the question is there anything Tommy can do this turn? And the honest answer is, I don't think there is. Latias is not... And this is one of the things about playing a counter deck like Tommy's playing. Latias doesn't have an ability, doesn't have a weakness that Tommy can take advantage of, which means he can't hit for weakness. Now, Leafeon is already doing 60. You put a Silver Bangle on there, that goes up to 90. 2 Deoxys, that goes up to 110. It's weak to Dragon, if anyone was wondering. Crucially here, Tommy has got an N. So not only does Ben no longer have that Lysandra in his hand, but actually Ben now is being reduced down to 2 cards, which is going to buy Tommy some time. But of course, and that is a Silver Bangle there. So Leafeon is going to be doing 60, 70, 80, 90, 110. Ben is a fan of using D20 so he can put all the damage on just 1 die. So it is quite hard to read from this distance, but there'll be 110 damage on there, leaving him with 60. So essentially, Ben needs a max... I mean, if Ben's got a Lysandra, he wins the game right here. He can free retreat... Oh, no, he doesn't, actually. Because he would need 4 energy and a muscle band. So, no, he can't kill that Deoxys. Not yet. He would need 2 energy, and it doesn't look like he's playing double colourless here, or an energy and a muscle band. He would, however, be able to Lysandra up the Deoxys and hit it for 90, and the chances of Tommy being able to retreat it are fairly slim. Of course, then the Deoxys would be able to kill the Latias with a Colress Machine and a Psychic Energy, because Deoxys on that Latias would be doing 120. I mean, you need a Colress Machine and a Psychic, but that's still a lot to ask for. So, it's not ideal yet, but Ben, he's in a favourable position here. The awkward thing for Ben is that he's got free energy in play, which isn't a lot for an Aromatisse style deck, and he's got a bunch of damage on that Latias. Now, if he has a max potion, he's fine. If he doesn't have a max potion, then he's gonna... Yeah, and that was a very good play there from Ben. He goes for the single prize rather than the double prize. He puts free energy onto that Geomancy Xerneas and KOs the Leafeon. And here, and I believe he has to discard an energy to do that, which, although these Aromatisse decks rely on energy, that's actually a really good play from Ben there, because he doesn't want free energy on there. Free energy means that Deoxys can do 120, which with the damage already on him from the Rainbow Energy will be enough for a KO. By discarding an energy, Deoxys is only doing 90, and that means that Xerneas would be on 110. I believe Tommy could get the KO with the Deoxys using a muscle band, because if I remember correctly, Xerneas has 100, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, by the way, I'm sorry. Yeah, Xerneas has 130. It looks like it's got 20 damage on there. So if Tommy could get a Psychic Energy and a Colress Machine and a muscle band, he could actually do 110, killing the Xerneas, knocking all the energy off, and pretty much guaranteeing the win. That is an awful lot to get this late in the game. Tommy's deck has been decimated. There's very little left in... Well, there's a fair bit left in Tommy's deck, but trying to grab all 3 of those is little. And now that the Eevee's active, and I don't believe any of the Eeveelutions have free retreat, he would need a Psychic Energy, he would need a Colress Machine, he would need a Muscle Band, and he would need a Switch. And there's a decent chance he's actually used up a bunch of that stuff. Now there goes the Psychic Energy. Now there goes the Skylar. But again, he still needs a Switch, a Colress Machine, and a Muscle Band here. And it's a fair amount to ask for. If I were Tommy... Oh no, there's the Switch! But he'll need the Muscle Band and the Colress Machine here. Oh, very clever. He switched out to the Genesect. Genesect's got 170 HP, if I remember correctly, and is weak to fighting, something which we certainly haven't seen from Ben yet. Oh, and there's Lysandra, and that is going to be enough to kind of end the game there and then. Virizion there does 50 damage, and Tommy had an Eevee on the bench, so that Eevee would have gone down to the Emerald Slash. That's another reason why Ben plays Rainbow Energy here. Although he can only play 4, he puts 1... and there's no basic Grass Energy, so he can't Emerald Slash for energy per se, or at all. But the 2 things he can do with Virizion, firstly, anything that's Grass weak like Seismitoad, he can hit for 100 for just 2 energy, which is of course fantastic. And he can use Virizion's ability to basically make his active immune to laser. Or if he's affected by a special condition, Ben can use Aromatisse's ability to move a Rainbow Energy onto the active, which will then activate Virizion's ability, curing the special condition, meaning he can then free retreat with Fairy Garden. So actually he doesn't need to play any switches, because the combination of Virizion and Fairy Garden there will do the trick. by getting rid of any ability and allowing the free retreat. So Tommy lost game 1. Tommy is going to be able to go first in game 2, and let's face it, he's going to he's going to take the chance to do that. He's going to want to do that. That's going to be something that he's going to be keen on. Now Tommy is starting off with a Genesect again, frustratingly. Ben, however, a much nicer start. He's got the Xerneas with Geomancy, which is the absolute best starter he can get. That means that Ben is not only, unless Tommy decides to use Red Signal and drag something else active, or drops a Lysandra, which we didn't see him play, it basically means that Ben is going to get the turn 1 Geomancy. That's where you attach 2 Fairy Energy, 1 each to 2 different bench Pokemon. And he's got 2 bench Pokemon on the bench, so he's going to get free energy in play on the first turn of the game. And he's got a Spritzy down, which means he's going to be able to evolve that into an Aromatisse next turn. Although Ben is going to want to get a second Spritzy down, because of course Tommy can use that Red Signal ability. So Tommy there killing the Mr. Mime. It looks like with a computer search we've got fairly good visibility, but I'm having to look at this in a fairly small screen as I record. But it looks like that was a computer search. Now, getting rid of the Mr. Mime kind of sucks. You don't want to get rid of the Mr. Mime, because Xerneas EX's first attack does 60 plus 30 to one of the benched. But needs must. Tommy again there going for the Leafeon, and it's like I said in the previous game. And I must actually say, very good pace kept up by these players. They're really keeping me on me toes. They're not giving me a lot of silences to fill. He gets the energy onto Leafeon, and onto Eevee, evolves it into Leafeon using Eevee's ability. But crucially, Tommy's hand looked like it sucked. Didn't seem to have a supporter, and just got kind of... And Ben doesn't look like he's playing a supporter either here. Problem is, Ben's got an attacker and free energy in play, and that's really, really good. Now, the good news here for Tommy is he has got that plasma energy. He attaches it to Genesect, activates Red Signal, brings this Spritzy active. It's going to do 60 damage because of the free energy on Ben's field. Spritzy's got 50 HP. That's going to get the KO and knock one of Ben's energies out of play. He's still got that Xerneas active, but it's like I said on the first turn of this second game. Ben really needs to double Spritzy it up, and presumably here, Ben is going to want to go for a Spritzy. Now, frustratingly there, he had the Evo Soda in hand to get the Aromatisse. And although Tommy hasn't played a supporter, it's not looking dire. He's got that Genesect, which is a really useful Pokemon. And he's got a second Eevee down. Now, Ben played a Skylar there, but he played it very, very quickly. And I missed what he actually got with it. Not a great start from either of these players. And that's a Rainbow Energy. Juniper. It looks like Ben used a Skylar for a Juniper there. And again, he's just Geomancying here. But the big problem Ben's got is he's now got 5 energy on the field, which means Leafeon's hitting for 100. And if he gets a Muscle Band or a pair of Deoxys, that's going to get the KO on the Xerneas. Now, Ben will still have plenty of energy in play, but he hasn't got the Aromatisse in play. Oh, and he's got another Plasma Energy, so he's going to kill the second Spritzy. And this is key, because Virizion can only do 50 damage, and there's free energy on him. This is actually, despite not having any supporters, Tommy's, by having those 2 plasma energy in hand early doors, this is working out brilliantly for Tommy here. Now, Ben gets an Eeveelution down, but crucially, he can't move that energy around. He's got free energy stuck on that Virizion. Virizion only hits for 50 damage, which really isn't good in this matchup unless he's facing down an Eevee or a Vaporeon. And let's face it, Vaporeon's not doing anything for Tommy. That's why you've only seen Water Energy, not Vaporeon. Now, Ben is going to play Energy Retrieval to get that energy back. He'd much rather be playing a Super Rod, but needs must. And he gets his Dowser Machine there, showing off that he plays a couple of Eeveelutions. And he gets an Ultra Ball. Oh, this is brutal. Having to discard 2 cards from Dowser Machine to get an Ultra Ball so that he can discard 2 cards to get a Spritzy. And there we go. Yes, it is a Spritzy. Of course it is. I didn't think there was any doubt, but it's worth checking. I mean, if Tommy's able to hit a... Oh, he's top decked a Plasma Energy. Oh, that is absolutely gutting for Ben. Oh, that is utterly horrible. He's now able to grab the third Spritzy and KO it. Now, the chances are Ben probably plays a Sacred Ash, which will allow him to get all three of his Spritzys back, but he's got to draw into that Sacred Ash, put the Pokemon back in, and then get a Spritzy out of his deck after that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be a fairly tall order indeed. That is absolutely gutting for Ben. And I don't know if Ben realised it, but we all saw it there. Tommy actually top-decked that. He didn't have it in his hand at the time. So Ben plays a Skylar, and if he plays it, we can assume, yes, there we go, he is going for the Sacred Ash. It's like I said a second ago. He needs that Spritzy. Now, the reason Ben plays Eeveelutions here is very simply, he's got those 4 Rainbow Energy, and 1 Rainbow Energy and 1 Fairy is enough to use Evil Ball. And he can use Y-Cyclone with 2 Fairy Energy and a Rainbow. So he only needs 1 Rainbow in play to actually go ahead and start using Evil Ball. And we've all seen how good an attack that can be. So it seems like he's got Mewtwo, he's got Eeveelutions, and he's got Virizion mostly there for the ability. His attackers, Ben, seem to be Eeveelutions EX, Xerneas EX, which is kind of a cool XY thing going on here with the 2 mascots of those games, and Mewtwo. Ben's deck very much built a very straightforward, much less teched out Aromatisse deck, and it's very much built for, look at me, I am going to pile energy onto my field and I'm going to switch it around and use Xerneas or Eeveelutions or Mewtwo depending on which attacker best suits my needs at the time. Now Ben, he's running into a slight problem here. Now the good news for Ben is that Tommy has used 3 Plasma Energy. We can assume he plays 4. Pretty much every Plasma deck is going to play 4. But this might not be the kind of deck where we would expect to see a Shadow Triad. Well, you could, but it's not the kind of deck where we would expect a Shadow Triad. So that means he's only got 1 red signal left. The big problem for Ben, however, he's got 5 energy on that Virizion, and he doesn't even have a Spritzy out. He needs a Spritzy to evolve into Aromatisse. And that he doesn't even have a Spritzy out, so it's at least 2 turns until Ben can actually get Aromatisse and start doing a load of damage here. And Tommy's going to get another Leafeon, which is of course key here, because Ben has 5, 6, 7 energy on his field. That means Leafeon's hitting for 140 for a single energy. No, I lied, 150. There's a Deoxys in play. And he gets the KO, he goes down to 2 prizes, and Ben really... I don't know what he's really going to be able to do here, because he needs a Rainbow Energy on that Eeveelutions. There's a Xerneas, and I can't see Ben coming back from this game. Tommy hitting the 3 red signals early to kill those 3 Spritzys has really screwed Ben over. And the other thing which has really hurt Ben here is that when he was doing those early game Geomancies, and you see he's just going to hit there for 50, when he was doing the early game Geomancies, he wasn't able to put the energy onto a Xerneas EX or a Mewtwo or an Eeveelutions. And you see there, Ben's just scooping. Ben's clever enough to know that this game isn't going to win, although actually I think Tommy might. That all happened very fast. Tommy actually might have had the KO with Leafeon there. Because I think there might have been a silver bangle there. It happened very fast. But regardless, either Ben scooped or Tommy had the KO. Regardless. And you see there how fragile this matchup is. Ben's clearly the favourite here. In a straight matchup where these 2 decks both draw okay, we saw that in Game 1, Ben wins. Game 2, Tommy won, but really, Tommy won because every time Ben put 1 Spritzy in play, Tommy was able to grab and kill it. Not only that, but Ben actually got even more unlucky there, because not only did the Spritzys keep going down, but he was Geomancying, and that's a verb and I'm using it as such, onto a Virizion and like a Spritzy, which is really just not good, because if he doesn't get an Aromatisse out, but he can pull, if he could get 3 Geomancies, getting free energy onto a Xerneas EX and free energy onto an Eeveelutions EX, it really doesn't matter so much that he doesn't have Aromatisse. He loses the ability to max potion without losing energy, but he can still keep up the prize trade, and there's a mulligan from Ben there. But if he's... if we have what we saw in that game, where there's no Aromatisse and he's building up energy onto Pokemon he's not going to attack with, whilst at the same time not being able to move that energy around to other Pokemon, then you're really getting into a position where nothing's going to... Oh, and there's another mulligan from Ben there, which is quite disappointing. In that case, then you're really starting to get yourself into a position where you can't really do anything. So although Tommy won Game 2, he's far from the favourite in this game. Ben's deck has got the healing, and Tommy's deck is really it's a counter deck. It's going to be pretty good against Seismitoad. It's going to be pretty good against fighting. It's going to be pretty good against Virizion Genesect. But it's not great against Eeveelutions decks, and it's really not very good against Aromatisse decks. It's also very good against Pyro, I should say. But it's not very good against this. And the more I think about the format, the more I consider Aromatisse might be one of the decks to beat. It's not very good against Virizion Genesect, but it can hold up against Fighting and Seismitoad, unless they have a really good start. And it's just really good in most matchups. But that... And I know I said he had a better start last time, but it didn't turn into that. But this time, Ben really has a better start. He's got a Geomancy Xerneas active, he's got a Spritzy on the bench, and he's got a Xerneas EX on the bench, so he can finally get a Geomancy onto a useful Pokemon. Tommy starts with Mime there, which is far from ideal, but what can you do? And yes, he's gone for a Genesect here. Of course he's going for a Genesect. Tommy saw the formula for winning last game, and that's what he needs to do again. Now, one thing which you may have missed as Tommy Schuyler's for a Professor's Letter getting some energy here, and you see that play from Tommy a lot. It's a hell of a play, because he also gets the evolving here. And that's going to get him that Leafeon, which, of course, is the key to this matchup for Tommy. You'll notice that Ben went second despite losing. And I was playing Ben in a friendly game just yesterday at our local league, and I asked him about that. Because I played a game and he chose to go second. And very simply, in his words, Geomancy turn 1 is too good to turn down. He knows that Tommy isn't going to play Lysandra first turn. He knows that the chances are that is going to stay in play. And it's going to stay active. Tommy's not going to red signal that Spritzy on turn 1 because he can't kill it, and that's a waste of a red signal because Ben will retreat it. He knows that Xerneas isn't going to be knocked out of the active because Tommy hasn't played Lysandre and he's not going to waste a red signal turn 1 where he can't attack. So he knows he's going to get the Geomancy turn 2, and he wants to get a Geomancy before Tommy can attack. What you also saw there, and that's absolutely crucial, is that he gets a second Spritzy in play. And immediately he needs that because Tommy's got the red signal on the Spritzy. Key thing here, he's got an energy onto a Xerneas EX, which is an attacker he can actually use, unlike in the last game. And he's got a second Spritzy. What he's really going to want to do next turn is evolve that one Spritzy to an Aromatisse and get a second Spritzy down. Because although... he'll need a switch here, will Tommy? He had to attach to use red signal. And he can't retreat. Oh no! Tommy didn't have a switch. That means Ben can manually retreat to the Geomancy Xerneas. He loses an energy, but of course he's just about to use 2 more. No! He's just gone for the KO. And that might seem like a silly play at this stage, but actually, he's got the Aromatisse. That's good. He's left 2 energy in play, which is hurting Leafeon. Ben is a local player. He doesn't travel around to a lot of tournaments. But trust me when I say this, Ben really knows what he's doing. That will have been calculated. Tommy actually can't even KO the Spritzy unless he gets a Deoxys or a Muscle Band down on that Leafeon. And now Tommy's really on the back seat here. Ben's hopefully going to get another Aromatisse next turn, as Tommy attaches a Psychic Energy to evolve into Espeon. But Leafeon's only doing 40 here, and if you look at that Xerneas as active, it's got 130 HP and 10 damage. That means it's still got 120 HP left. That means that Tommy ain't killing that anytime soon. And for any of you that have ever played against an Aromatisse-style deck, and I'm assuming most of you have at one point or another, you'll notice that 130 HP on a basic that's got a really awkward weakness, it's got a weakness to metal if anyone's wondering, is actually a really difficult thing to KO, especially early game. Oh, I say he attaches the energy to evolve into Espeon. There is no Espeon being played there. Now, whether Tommy didn't want an Espeon or whether he didn't have any Espeons in his deck, I don't know. But Tommy hasn't evolved, despite attaching that Psychic Energy to an Eevee. Now we see 2 Deoxys down there now from Tommy. 3 Deoxys down now from Tommy. Oh, and he's got to kill the energy to retreat. He puts up the Leafeon. Leafeon is hitting for 70. 40 for the 2 energy on Ben's side of the field. Added to the 30 from the 3 Deoxys. But that still only puts him up to 80. And that's not enough. And even though we're only a couple turns into this game, it's already going heavily in Ben's favour. He's got the Aromatisse. He's got the attackers. And the other thing is, Ben won game 1 because he had a favourable matchup. He didn't run away with the game, but he won it because he had a favourable matchup. Tommy won game 2 because he was able to red signal those Spritzies and Ben wasn't able to Geomancy onto a decent attacker. By game 3, Tommy's played at Worlds. He played in 2011, 2012 and 2013. I don't believe he played at Worlds this year. But Tommy is a at least 3-time Worlds competitor. And like I say, Ben's a very good player as well. He just doesn't go to many tournaments. But he cuts a fair percentage of the ones he does go to. By the 3rd game here, both players are going to know how this matchup works. So Ben is being very careful here. He could have got the KO on Leafeon. But then he's got free energy in play, and he's got a half-dead Xerneas, and he's going to get the energy knocked off the field. As Tommy there plays a red signal to bring that Aromatisse active, because he needs to kill it. And now that Ben's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 energy on the field, that's going to do 100. Aromatisse has 90 HP, 130, sorry, with the Deoxys, so yeah. And Tommy actually has got a Vaporeon out there, it looks like. Vaporeon's not great, but for 2 energy it does 80 to a Pokemon EX. And of course, when you add in, 3 Deoxys and a Silver Bangle, that goes up to 140. Which isn't ideal, but it's better than now, shall we say. But of course, Ben here, he's got a Spritzy down. He really wants a second Spritzy, and he's going to want an Aromatisse. But Ben knows how this matchup's going to play out. So although Ben did use a Geomancy there, and he put a bunch of energy on his field, he knew he was leaving himself open to the play that Tommy just did. But it was a calculated risk. He leaves himself open to the risk of what just happening. But he's also safe in the knowledge that he's got attackers. He's going to be able to do a bunch of energy damage here. Although he doesn't get the Aromatisse, which sucks. And he doesn't have a muscle band. He can't move the energy around. So at that stage, he's only actually got, as somebody starts reading, and that might be me. In round 2, I had a pretty quick game against Pyral with my Seismitoad. That might have been me reading that Vaporeon. I think at this stage, I'm actually watching the game. So yeah, we're in game 3 here. They're 1 game each, and it looks like it's going in Ben's favour. Tommy, and he's already had 2, he needs a red signal. And that's what this game is really coming down to. Can Tommy, because the way to beat Aromatisse is twofold. You either take out the Aromatisse to limit their options, meaning they can't choose between attackers freely, and also to stop them using Max Potion, or you take all their energy off the field and then you take away their options that way. If you let them have Aromatisse and a bunch of energy, they are going to win most of their matchups, unless it's a terrible, terrible matchup. That's how Virizion Genesect is able to beat Aromatisse quite a lot, because Aromatisse, Genesect can G-boost to whatever's got the energy on, Genesect can Red Signal and G-boost to whatever's got the energy, and actually take all the energy off and win that way. It's why Virizion Genesect has a favourable matchup. By the way, I didn't really see the arm that came across. If that was a feminine-looking arm, it obviously wasn't my arm. It could have been Becca, the head judge. I don't really know is the honest answer, although Becca probably knew what Vaporeon did. I don't know, I didn't get a good look at the arm. If it was a feminine-looking arm, hopefully my arms don't look that feminine, but I didn't see the arm. So here, Tommy's taken a couple of prizes, I believe, and Ben's taken 1. But this is one of those matchups where it's not really about prizes, especially this early on. It doesn't matter that Tommy's got a 1-prize lead. Let's look at Ben's board. He drops down a Spritzy and an Aromatisse, he wins. Ben gets a KO there to even up the prizes. And I think Tommy's got 4. It's hard to look at them from here. But, you know, Tommy needs to kill that Spritzy, and he's not going to kill that Spritzy. He is, however... Oh no, Tommy had only taken 1 prize, sorry. Just the one on that Spritzy early doors. He then kills the Eeveelutions, gets rid of a pair of energy, using Vaporeon's attack, which would have been doing 110. And of course that Eeveelutions already had some damage on it from the previous hit from Leafeon, because, as I said, it was that turn where Ben was only able to do 80, not the required 100 to Leafeon. But Ben's got that Fairy Garden, he's got free retreat, he needs an Aromatisse, and it's looked a little bit like Ben hasn't had a supporter for a little while. Although it looks like he's got a Juniper in hand, unless he's just played a Juniper. He might have just played a Juniper. I might have missed that. Yes, he did play a Juniper, my apologies. My video is skipping a tiny bit here and there. So he does 60 and he gets a 30 to the Eevee on the bench. That's why the Mr. Mime is potentially useful in this matchup. Tommy now needs to evolve that Eevee or Ben's going to have an easy KO next turn. The good news for Tommy is that Vaporeon is actually doing a little bit of work. Because like I say, it's hitting for 110. The downside, of course, for... Tommy is that Ben's getting 2 prizes next turn, because that Vaporeon's going down and that Eevee's going down. Now we get the energy, the plasma energy onto Deoxys, meaning that can attack, which means he's not attaching he's not evolved the Eevee. He didn't get the basic energy to evolve the Eevee, he didn't get the Eeveelution to evolve the Eevee. Ben's got a double prize turn coming here, and now he gets the Colress for... looks like 9. Ben needs an Aromatisse Max Potion. If Ben hits an Aromatisse and a Max Potion, he can move the energy off of Xerneas. He can play the Max Potion to heal the Xerneas. Then he can knock out the Vaporeon and the Eevee from the residual bench damage, going down to 2 prizes and taking away all the Eevees off Tommy's board. And that's the key thing here. Oh, there's a dowsing machine. Now it doesn't look like Ben's got anything in hand, but I couldn't see very well there. Now the other key thing about this turn here is that Tommy has got that Deoxys down ready to attack. Deoxys is ready to hit for 120. Now, I don't know how much damage is on that Xerneas, but I believe it got hit by Leafeon, so it's a fair amount. Ben's got the Max Potion, he's got the Aromatisse, and that's basically game at this stage, ladies and gentlemen. Tommy's only going to be able to do 120, a maximum of 140 if he hits a Muscle Band with that Deoxys. He's going to have no Eevees or Eeveelutions on the bench. Ben's got a bunch of energy in play. He's got his Aromatisse. He's got his Fairy Garden. There is no way Tommy's killing that Aromatisse this turn. He would need to attach a Grass Energy to an Eevee to turn it into a Leafeon, and he would need a Plasma Energy to attach it to that Genesect to bring it active, and you cannot attach 2 energy in 1 turn unless you're Oni Barnet at the last winner box I went to in Wakefield. And neither of these players are like that. At this stage... it's an inevitability. Time might run out and lead to a draw. And I don't know if time's being called here. I don't believe it is, because we're only 44 minutes in. But Ben's got a bunch of energy. If Ben can hit a Lysandra and a Mewtwo, he is going to win. Although even saying that, there's a bunch of energy on his field. He's currently got 5 energy on his field, which means he might even be able to get the KO on a Genesect using Eeveelutions. No, not. He would need another energy and a Muscle Band in order to do enough. So if he's got an energy Muscle Band Lysandra, that's going to kill the Genesect. or if he's just got a Lysandre and a Mewtwo, he's going to be able to drag up that Mewtwo. Now we're getting close to the end of the video here, so may I please remind you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. The channel's growing quite nicely at the moment. We're getting a lot of views, a lot of subscribers. We're up to about 520 as I record, but there are other Pokemon channels with a few thousand subscribers, so there's plenty of room yet. Please subscribe, talk to your friends, tell your friends to subscribe, etc, etc. And Tommy's ending Ben down to 2 here to try and reduce the chance of Ben hitting what he needs. Make sure you like this video. Just click like. It takes like a second. Click it right now while I'm talking, while you're watching this. Go and click like. It will take you a fraction of a second. If you've done it, brilliant. Comment if you've got anything you want to say. Make sure you've subscribed. Make sure your friends subscribe as well. There we go. That's the wrapping up bit to do at the end, because we are getting to the end here. And it all depends. Now, Ben's got an Ultra Ball. Oh, and there's a Deoxys active, so he plays the Ultra Ball. He's going to grab the Mewtwo, put all the energy on the Mewtwo, and destroy that Deoxys. This shouldn't be a surprise. They're two very good players, and if you look here, it's very simply a case of Ben's deck should win in an even game. Tommy won game 2 because he drew better than Ben, but in an even game, Ben should win this best of 3, and that's what happens. Ben goes to 2-0, Tommy goes to 1-1. I'll be back with another video in a couple of days.